This is a story about hemp. Now, I got involved, somebody was expounding the virtues of it, and I've never really looked at it from the point of view that it was given to me. And so I'll describe this to you and the type of program we'd like to make about it. Hemp used to account for something like 20% of all the sown land in England. Huge amount. The average man of war had up to 60 tons of it on board, sails or rope or whatever. The founding fathers insisted that, all of them insisted that the farmers plant hemp close to vulnerable crops, because hemp has got an inbuilt insecticide which deters insects for miles around. It's a brilliant plant. In fact, it's the oldest plant that is immortalised in wall paintings in Europe. In France, they've got paintings of hemp. And it just mystified me to such a miraculous plant is so distant on the horizon. You know, I mean, we've all heard about wacky backy and you smoking the stuff and things like that. But that's a tiny, tiny part of the story of hemp. It's always been regarded through all major civilizations, from Egyptians onwards, or before, as being a miracle plant. It's got the longest, strongest fibrous strands known to man. It grows quicker than almost any other plant. In 90 days you can get a full plant growth, and that can be anything up to 15 feet tall. Huge trunk on it. And every part of the plant is useful to man. We have now discovered that the silicon that surrounds the strands in the stem of the plant is perfect for making plastic. And they do make plastic out of it. And some CD cases with certain people that rebelled against America, unfortunately it's the 1937 Marijuana Act created the demonization of hemp. And that means the demonization of hemp in all its forms. The kiss of death came upon the hemp plant was when Henry Ford referred to hemp as being, he made the statement and said, one day all cars will be powered by hemp. That incident appears to have been the initiation of the demonization of hemp, because that demonization was led by the Mellon Bank and the Mellon family, who owned half the oil fields in Texas. It was seen as a direct competitor to this newly discovered miracle fuel, which was petrol. Not newly discovered, but the world could see that the automobile industry was going to be the next major industry. So monopolies were created as soon as they became available. So how do you demonize a plant that has been revered by the American establishment for hundreds of years? And so, but that's the power of the press. Hearst was brought on board because Hearst owned some hugely influential newspapers, but more importantly, he owned huge tracts of ancient forest in America, into which he could see turning into wood pulp, which makes paper. A far superior paper is made from hemp, and it costs a fraction of the cost to process. Wood pulp costs a fortune to process. Hemp paper costs nothing virtually to process. It's literally a matter of pressing it, and obviously you've got to do certain other things to it, but essentially that's it. Parchments, were originally hemp. The covered wagons that trolled across America, all the coverings were hemp. You can get there are so many different varieties of hemp, and hemp is, you only get stone from hemp, or the results of that of smoking hemp, high HTC content, and the HTC content is basically an insecticide, a built-in insecticide within the plant, and that's how the plant uses that particular drug that makes us stoned, but it's an insecticide for the plant itself. So the stronger the more voracious the insects are, the larger amount of THC there is in the plant to combat that. So, and the more voracious insects are closer to the equator. So the further south you go, the stronger it goes, which is why marijuana, which is the Mexican word for hemp, was used by the Senate to demonize it. They thought, well, no senator is going to say, let's make hemp illegal, because they all used it and everyone grew it, and it was grown all over the country. The 1937 Act to demonize that plant was called the Marijuana Act. Now, half the senators that signed that didn't know what they were signing, and the other half were given this spin about, which was the reefer madness, which was how essentially how it started, was how wild the black man was when he smoked the leaves of the marijuana plant, which is all rubbish, as we all know, because the last thing you want to do is go out and rape someone if you're stoned on hemp. Anyway, that's another issue. So Mellon, who was now Secretary of State because he was one of the wealthiest men in America, owned the Mellon Bank and these huge Texas oil fields. His son-in-law was a guy called Asbinger, and Asbinger was appointed as head of the narcotic aspects of the American government. And between him, Mellon and Hearst, they started a campaign to demonize hemp. And that was obviously the headlines in the paper about what wicked things were done when people smoked it. And so the bill sailed through Congress in 1937. And effectively, everybody within the American sphere of influence had to follow suit, as most politicians who, they're all in it for the money anyway, will pay the piper. Whoever pays the biggest amount, they're going to follow that legislation. The same thing happens now. So they managed to get the Marijuana Act on the statute books in 1937. And within the hemp plant, there are two vital ingredients. One is an ingredient that prevents the body taking on fatty acids and fats. So if you have hemp in your diet, and that can come from flour, because the husk of the seed, when ground, makes an excellent flour. And you can get a hemp seed. We all traditionally think of a hemp seed as being very small, but you can get a hemp seed the size of a pea, and that's the one that they used to harvest the flour from. Every aspect of this plant has been a saviour for man. It saved Australian settlers when they first settled in Australia. It was the only plant that survived the harsh winters there and the harsh summers there. Its heritage is beyond belief, and there's now a movement to re-establish it in certain places, and they've started by creating a market for medical marijuana, which is a way they're going to reintroduce the plant, I guess, because so there's going to be a lot of resistance to it, because it's a direct competitor to cotton. Cotton is a vastly inferior product. They reckon hemp clothing or a hemp shirt will last from one generation to another, so durable is it. It's an amazing material. The plant itself can be sown on the same piece of land, as proved by a Lincolnshire farmer. For 67 years he planted the same piece of land with the same crop year in, year out. And you can get two crops sometimes in a year with hemp. It's a miraculous thing. They reckon 1 acre of land they can grow enough fuel from the hemp plant to power the machinery to harvest for another 100 years. It's a miracle plant in every way. They reckon it accounts for something like 40% of the basis for Chinese medicine, herbal medicines. It's been revered. All the main stones that were hauled into place for the pyramids were all dragged by hemp rope. And this is a documentary. And the idea of the documentary is to have a presenter. I've got, incidentally, Willie Nelson, the folk singer, who's, the singer is very keen on the whole idea of reintroducing hemp, not necessarily to smoke, but as as a great supplement to humanity. It is a really vital thing. And I think when man has used up all the fossil fuels and there's no more, we've virtually extinguished or exterminated all life on the planet, man, the surviving members, will rediscover the hemp plant and the whole process could begin again. It is that important and was considered that important to civilization. I've written the main idea, the main program, and that would be to describe its importance over history, and that can go back to the cave paintings describing every founding father, the descriptions they gave about hemp, the Ulysses given by a group of scientists in the 1830s as being possibly the most beneficial plant on the planet. It was a group of international scientists in France in the early 19th century made that statement. Napoleon invaded Russia supposedly because we used to buy a lot of hemp from Russia, and Napoleon wanted to stop that supply. That was one of the reasons anyway. So we want to make a program describing that, and then the second part of that program describing how it was demonized and the process used by an irresponsible, environmentally destructive group of businessmen. They didn't give a monkeys about the planet or the people that thrived on hemp. They wanted to make money. And that's what we're into here. We're into a group of businessmen making money at the cost of the rest of us, which there's not a lot new happens there. So the program will be an hour program describing the benefits, the history, and then the last part of the program will be what happened, where it went wrong, how they managed to demonize it, and finishing up with an optimistic note, because it's now starting to become, BMW, for instance, are making car panels from pressed hemp. And it's only a matter of time before everyone realizes that this is crazy. Just to benefit the automobile industry or the petroleum industry, we've denied mankind a wonderfully beneficial plant. So that'll be the program. And that's what I'd love you to invest in. It'll be an hour-long program, and it'll be on our website. So again, go through Kickstarters.